The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
One of the quotes from Dr. King that still resonates with me the most to this day is when he said, and I paraphrase, "I fear I've assimilated my people into a burning house." I think the question that Dr. King would ask, that any of our leaders, our martyrs, our elders, and our ancestors would ask would be, have Black people changed America, or has America changed Black people? Because what do we perceive as justice? Is justice getting away with what America gets away with? Or is justice changing America to be what it needs to be for the most marginalized communities? We're going to discuss that and a whole lot more today. Up first, On the Clock with Georgia Ford.
In Minneapolis, protesting continues despite the fact that Derek Chauvin has been sentenced to 22 and a half years in prison. The trial is set for the other 3 officers involved in George Floyd's death, and we've seen an arrest in the case for Dante Wright, who was shot and killed by a Brooklyn Center police officer. So some would say from the outside looking in that the judicial system is working. Yet on Tuesday evening, there were only 2 of 8 bills passed in regards to police reform. Still, no police reform passed on a federal level. And so the protesting continues. Needless to say, although the news cycle has moved on and many people are not following this, and the protesting has evolved into very unique ways to disrupt the norm. For example, people going into uptown Minneapolis, where Winston Smith was shot and killed by a federal task force, and using red paint to cover the street to symbolize the blood that had been shed. People going onto the freeway and blocking the freeway. And also people bumping into their council representative out at Pride events and stopping them and holding them accountable. Take a listen to this. It's causing a lot of controversy, a lot of backlash for these protesters stopping this council member. But I wanted to share it with you guys and get your thoughts on this. Take a look at what happened this week during a Pride event.
So here we are. We're outside Lauren Park. We have Andrew Jenkins, who showed up to the People's Pride to come do a photo op. She told me that she was glad that there were no cops here, and da-da-da-da-da. I told her that she should protect Floyd Town, which she wouldn't agree to. I told Jenkins it's in her district. I told her that the state, the people that they pay have physically assaulted me 3 times. She says it's not her business and it's just nothing she could do, even though they give them money. And I told her about getting community control of the police passed, because they haven't passed any legislation except the fact that they give more money to the cops. So what she did is she blew up at me in my face. Someone got in between us. She went around them to jump in my face again and yelled at me. And then she stormed off to this car. So we've been out here for about an hour and a half. And she has been mean, she has been rude. Her friend or partner has called the cops on us already. She refuses to say she's going to support community.
3 days before I get out of here, I got this.
It might be 3 days.
In front of my car, like he's holding it down. Like this ain't white supremacy. White the fuck here. Like, man, I can't believe this.
There you go, everyone.
So as you can see, there are some tense moments. Andrea Jenkins also identifies as trans, and so there's been a lot of backlash for DJ, who also identifies as part of the LGBTQ community. There's been some backlash on the way that that was handled. Ben, I wanted to bring you in on this and get your thought, because on one hand, we're seeing that protesters have tried traditional ways to get change, and
Right.
that change has not come to fruition yet. It's been more than a year since George Floyd was killed. Andrea Jenkins is the council member who represents the district where he was actually killed. And
Mhm.
so these protesters held Jenkins there, you know, it, and it didn't seem violent, although this has been now, this is being called a hostage situation. And so you have people who are on different ends of the spectrum with this. And so was this overboard? Did these protesters do too much in this instance? Or is this a result of all of the other protesting methods failing and individuals and community saying, listen, you're in office for us, you represent us, and this is what we want to see happen?
That's exactly right. I believe that what would they expect the people to do? Would they expect the people to just say, okay, we had a good year, it was a nice, encouraging protest, but let's just go home and leave things the same? Now, I'm not one to judge the tactics of protesters because I'm not on the ground with them. I'm not in those groups making those decisions about what tactics is going to be the best. And I'm not taking the risk that they're taking implementing those strategies. There's a lot of risk. When I heard that engine rev up, my anxiety went to 10 because of how many protesters have been killed by people driving at a fast speed and just driving through the crowds. So I'm not going to judge their tactics because there's a risk involved with all of it. And they're going, that setting that aside, what do you expect the people to do? I mean, this is why you see buildings being burned, because politicians have not stepped up to the plate and done anything except for give us symbolism. So I'm sorry if this was as an inconvenience. And I was looking up. I recognize Andrea's name, Andrea Jenkins. She was one who a politician who was on CNN with Brooke Baldwin, as Brooke Baldwin had that breakdown and she started crying, and it was an extremely viral, extremely powerful moment where they were discussing George Floyd, and it was a powerful moment that I've shared several times, but nothing's changed since then. Sister Jenkins, nothing has changed since then, and I think that's the frustration you're hearing in the voices of those protesters.
Yeah, and they went on. They actually had a piece of paper. I think you may have seen it at the beginning with a few different demands. And they went through and read those demands to Jenkins and made Jenkins agree to those demands, and actually made Jenkins sign that piece of paper before they let her leave. And a lot of people are saying that they went overboard. They took this too far. People saying that they held this council member hostage. And for me, I as a journalist always look at both sides, right? On the other hand, it feels like saying that Councilmember Jenkins was held hostage it feels like a little bit of a reach. At no time did Jenkins try to get out the car and leave. At no time were they threatened, but there was active resistance, people standing in front of the vehicle. But how is that any different from people taking the highway and then forcing whoever was on the highway at that moment? They're literally stuck. They can't go anywhere. We've seen protesters stand in front of the light rail here in Minneapolis. How is that any different than standing in front of a vehicle? And at no time were those protests considered to be holding someone hostage. So I think that labeling this as a hostage situation is a little bit of an overreach. Are you starting to get uncomfortable in the fact that protesters will roll up on you and make you stand there until you hear them, right? Are we getting to that point? But we've been to that point in the city of Minneapolis because we've seen protesters roll up to the house of the district attorney and to the woman who's over the federal task force that killed Winston Smith. We've seen and several different district attorneys, not just one, but the one who was over George Floyd's case, which, let's say, did result in those officers being fired and arrested. And then also Pete Orpit, who was over Kim Potter's case, which ultimately did result in that case being handed off again to the same special prosecution team that got Derek Chauvin convicted and charged, right? So at the same time, in like, look at both sides of this, the people who are saying, hey, these protesters are going too far, then I would challenge those individuals to create a community, to create a society where just simply showing up to these city council meetings is effective at simply working with your state reps to draft and author legislation will get it passed, right? Like, what else do you expect people to do, especially when the core and the essence of their messaging is stop killing us. Just stop killing us.
Period. That's the thing. That's the and here's the thing. As I was listening to the video, and I think you said the gentleman's name in the video is DJ. And as he was talking, I believe I heard him mention, or perhaps you mentioned earlier, that this particular council member signed off on increases to the budget to the police. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
And see, not only are they not defunding the police, they're increasing the budgets of the police without any additional accountability, without any reduction, without getting rid of qualified immunity, without mandatory, even with mandatory body cams, they end up cutting them off anyway, but without penalizing them for cutting it off, without actually making change, structural change, where police officers have to carry insurance and that they pay these settlements versus taxpayers paying these settlements. See, these council members are hostage to the police unions. I just got to call a spade, because the police unions and the police force and the chief of police in every city, they have the biggest budget and they continuously get increases. And Black people are saying, no, you all are funding our murderers. And so you have to understand the level of frustration that these protesters have been going strong for a full year, and to have council members as Black as she is, if she signed off on an increase in the budget during the middle of this protest, that is a problem.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that people are pointing to is the fact that George Floyd Square, the intersection where he was killed, has been reopened under her watch, something that she worked in conjunction with the mayor to execute. And that was important. We're still investigating to find out whether or not George Floyd Square is the longest protest in history, but that space was held basically as I guess you could say collateral for 24 demands, right? There was a list of 24 demands, maybe 7 or 8 of those demands have been met so far, and there was a number of other demands. And this all came after George Floyd was killed. Some of them directly tied to George Floyd's case. Other demands were tied to the needs of community members in that area. And there's also another man who was killed less than a block away, whose murder is unsolved. And so there's a lot of different layers to that. Andrea Jenkins being the representative of that district, and people saying, well, who do you represent? You know, and so there's this back and forth push and pull of representing the business owners who they are saying want the space open, representing residents, some saying they want the space back open. But then you have dozens of caretakers, if not hundreds, who have been occupying that space and holding that space for justice and for these demands. So you can't say you represent everyone, because we know that not everyone is in consensus about what should happen there. So that was another big thing that DJ was advocating for on those lists of demands, you know. And so it's interesting because you have these people saying that, you know, they took it too far. On the other hand, you have people saying Derek Chauvin took it too far.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So where is the How do you effectively protest while you're Black in America? How do you effectively protest being Black in America without them saying you took it too far? Because
Yeah.
we talked about Gwen yesterday. They said she took it too far. Kaepernick, he took it too far. They burnt down the 3rd precinct after George Floyd was killed. They took it too far. So what is acceptable? And at this point, let's just be clear. There's no acceptable form of protest, like we concluded yesterday, right?
Period.
There's no way that we could stand up and say, hey, this isn't right. We need to do better. We need change. We demand that you do better. There's no acceptable way that we're given to stand up for ourselves and say that we deserve better.
I know that one thing is certain. Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a struggle. It never has, never will. And I don't care if they are Black politicians. They represent power. See, and I'll be brief. Sister Andrea, I don't want to get the wrong name. Sister Andrea Jenkins. She represents power now. And this is why they keep paying and increasing the budgets to police departments, no matter what city we are talking about. I don't care if we're talking about the city that George Floyd was killed in, or we're talking about your local city. That budget for police, it is always going to go up. It's going to always increase. You know why? Because the people who are sitting on that bench, while they tell you that they represent you, ultimately they represent the institution of the city, and the enforcement arm of the city is a police. And so it is and I'm one more time, I don't care if you are Black, because we're going to see this throughout the day. How many Black politicians are stepping in, running interference? And if Andrea Jenkins is not running interference, she certainly has signed on to an increase in the budget for the police, while the police are still getting away with murder. We should have a problem with that as Black people.
Now, I want to turn to Gwen Berry, because Gwen Berry's protest was very different than DJ's, right? You have a woman who is in the Olympic trials, and several times have used the platform for this, right? Puts a fist up, turns her back against the national anthem. And that simple protest, that's not interfering with anybody's day. She didn't stand in front of anybody's car. She didn't burn down a building. She didn't take a highway. She turned her back on the national anthem, and that was her form of protest. Listen to what they're saying about her.
She turned her back on the flag during the anthem, and she also put a black T-shirt over her face that said, activist athlete.
We don't need any more activist athletes. She should be removed from the team. The entire point of the Olympic team is to represent the United States of America. That's the entire point. Okay, so, it's one thing when these NBA players do it. Okay, fine, we'll just stop watching. But now the Olympic team, and it's multiple cases of this, they should be removed. That should be the bare minimum requirement, is that you believe in the country.
I want to ask you about the Olympic hammer thrower, Gwen Berry. Turned her back on the anthem. She only placed 3rd in the hammer throw, so I don't know if she was bitter, but she actually took a lot of positive attention away from the other 2 Americans who placed 1st and 2nd, and destroyed all the chemistry that they had in the track and field female locker room, in my opinion. How do you see it?
Yeah, I agree, Jesse. I don't think it's too much when athletes are competing to wear the Stars and Stripes, to compete under the Stars and Stripes in the Olympics, for them to simply honor that flag and our anthem on the medal stand. If Miss Berry is so embarrassed by America, then there's no reason she needs to compete for our country.
Exactly.
She should be removed from the Olympic team.
Yeah, if it's such a racist nation, why do you want to represent us in Tokyo? Makes no sense. I don't think she's ever thought of that.
If the nation is so racist, why do you want to represent us? Because she's American. She is American, and she does represent a big portion of the population in America. As a matter of fact, we saw the biggest global outcry supporting Black Lives Matter last year when George Floyd was killed. So you can't sit here and say she doesn't, who does she represent? You know who she represents. She represents a lot of people. She speaks for a lot of people, the people who showed up and used their voices last year in the biggest protest in history. So, it's interesting to hear her criticized and ridiculed, and even to the extent of where you have Republicans saying that she needs to be removed from the team, that she shouldn't represent America. I think she is the best person to represent this nation and all of the conflict that we're facing, because she's standing up for truth and using her voice and not remaining complicit and acting like everything is kumbaya when it's not.
Yeah. I would like to say that Crenshaw, Dan Crenshaw, who was in the first clip, and Tom Cotton, Senator Tom Cotton, who's in the second clip, Senator Cotton from Arkansas. Okay, why don't we take all the Black athletes out of the Olympic teams for the United States? And why don't we let them go and represent some Black countries? How would you actually like that, my friends? So I don't know if they actually thought that logic all the way through, but what they're used to doing is being able to separate the activism arm from the entertainment and the sports arm, because so long as they're able to keep those two arms separated, we don't get the full force of Blackness. They want the form of Blackness, but deny the power thereof. They want our strength and our athleticism, but they don't want us to get up there and put up our fist in solidarity, not only with Black people here in the United States, but marginalized people across the entire globe. But if you really don't want us to represent you because we're using our constitutional right, First Amendment right to free speech and to protest, then yeah, maybe we do take and then see where America actually lands. What if we took our entire culture away from you? What would America be without Blackness? It wouldn't even be America.
It brings me back to this question of palatable protesting, and that we continue every time we stand up, and this goes all the way back to Selma. Think about the attack on our ancestors when they walked over the bridge in Selma, right? And so you think about generation after generation after generation that has been standing up actively against and I'll say this, right? Slavery was abolished, but it was also reformed. After it was abolished, it was reformed in so many different labor laws and so many different amendments to the Constitution. And, we've gone down that path. And so here we are, and the residual effect of slavery being reformed because it still exists in our laws. And then also we know redlining, and then also we know voter suppression. So all of these different things that we've had to combat year after year after year. But every single time when we step up to use our voices, we're told that we're un-American. That we don't deserve the things that we have worked for. So you're telling me Gwen Berry should be kicked off the team when she's worked her butt off to get in that position, and now that's her platform and that's her time to be standing on the floor with everyone else, and she should be able to use that time however she sees fit because she worked to be in that position.
I think of Simone Biles. I think of
Ask you about the Olympic.
I don't want to mispronounce our sister, the new dynamic sister. Well, she's not new to this. She's been true to it with the orange hair, Sha'Carri. I don't want to mispronounce her name. But these sisters and brothers and non-gender conforming individuals have been putting in the work to represent this country. It's time for this country to put in the work to represent Black people. And they have a right as citizens, no matter how many times these little white supremacists in training and supreme supremacists like Tom Cotton on our screen right now. I just got to call a spade with Tom Cotton. There is no authoritarianism that Tom Cotton doesn't want and doesn't support. And so for him to call out our sister Gwen on this issue is just another part and parcel of how America needs to maintain its power. And it maintains its power by keeping Black people just play sports, play for us, produce for us, create entertainment for us, entertain us but don't speak to us about what we have done wrong to you. That's what they want, and that's what they're trying to keep. And no, they can't have that, because we're going to continue to speak truth to power, no matter whether they like it or not.
Well, that's all we have this morning for On the Clock. For those of you watching, stick around for more on The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Good morning, people. You know who it is. You hear the voice. It's your man, DJ Exclusive James Bubba Williams, y'all. Good morning, and welcome. Get situated, get settled. Like it or not, is coming up next, y'all. Shout out to Georgia Fort and Benjamin Dixon, y'all. On the Clock with Georgia Fort. Y'all did that, man. Welcome, y'all. Come on in, get your coffee, your tea, whatever it is that you need to get your morning started, y'all. It's like it or not. Let's get it. Let's go.
I deleted all your messages, 'cause it only reminds me of the past. But you're still drunk texting me when you're lonely. I don't know why you keep calling me on my phone. Thought I was
good morning, everyone. Good morning. Tiger, shout out to you. Good morning. Laura, good morning. Brother Chuck Diesel. Chuck, good morning, y'all. Raph, good morning. AR Walker, good morning. Patricia, good morning. Sonny Wright, good morning to you. Brother Goku, come here. Shout out to everybody that's in our chat room, y'all. Good morning, y'all. Demetri, good morning. Brother Latif.
Why won't you leave me alone? I deleted all your messages, 'cause it only reminds me of the past. But you're still drunk texting me when you're lonely. I don't know why you keep calling me on my phone. Thought I was clear, I'm not your friend, I'm not the old me. You think I'm the same, but you don't even know me. So I don't know why you keep calling.
Marquez, good morning, everybody, y'all. Come on in, get situated, get settled. This is your boy DJ Exclusive. Like it or not, is about to start shortly, y'all. Make sure that you get your coffee, your tea, your drink, whatever it is that you need to get your morning started. And we'll be started momentarily, y'all. Good morning. And hey, make sure that you get ready for tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, it goes down. Patron party. And if you have not already become a patron, do so by going to patreon.com/like it or not. Patreon.com/like it or not, y'all. Hey, man, y'all want this content to continue? Y'all want to see my face, Rebecca's face, George's face, Ben's face? Man, y'all go ahead and join that Patreon, man. Let's get it. Let's go. Tyler, good morning. Sucking those she's 61, good morning. Shout out to the UK that's watching this morning. It's Truth the Dragon, good morning to you. Brother Tyler, good morning. Esther, good morning. Roll call, y'all. Esther, good morning. On it goes. Anna Hart, good morning. Esther Savage, sweetheart, good morning. Six Dragon Daddy, good morning. Jam Tunes, hello to everybody that's on Twitch streaming this morning as well, too. Give y'all a little funk this morning to get the morning started right. Shout out my sister Nat A, and shout out to the nephew Kane. Good morning, y'all. Rabb 1984. Good morning. Good morning. Ill Hustler. Good morning. Brenda. Good morning. Afraid Dark. Good morning, y'all. Brother Diallo, stop by saying.
sticks and stones may break my bone, but your words can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, I ain't been right more than I've been wrong. And it's
no human is good morning.
No, it just can't hurt me.
Christopher Clay, good morning, sir.
No, you just can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, no, no. I know it's hard to be polite, and it's easy being petty. My mama used to tell me, gotta use you when he ready. Man, it's crazy how my brother said he could have been my celly. It's either prison or a grave, that's what everybody tell me. Man, life ain't a beach, it's a female dog. I'm staying 10 toes down, though I still might fall. Oh yeah, now I done came through knocking pictures.
My brother said I stay 10 toes down, but I still might fall, goddammit. They gonna get right back up again. Y'all, good morning.
My faith strong, but my flesh still kinda weak. When that victory be looking like the verge of defeat, and I feel like disrespect, help me turn my other cheek and say sticks and stones may break my bone, but your words can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, I ain't been right more than I've been wrong, and it still can't hurt me. No, it just can't hurt me. No.
Chef Mello G, good morning. Mila, good morning. Sister Mara, I know you out there somewhere. Good morning to you.
No, you just can't hurt me. No, no, no.
Mark S, good morning, brother. Melanie.
No, you just can't hurt me. No, you just
love y'all, man. I appreciate y'all so much.
See, it's hard to be polite. It's easy being petty. Mama used to tell me, gotta use you when you're ready. Cause I ain't working on my own timing. Ain't got no diamonds on me, but I stay shy.
Brother Infinite Content, good morning, good morning.
If we take out the hate. Stop all the hate right now. Yeah. Let's keep it real, it be better.
Juliet DeMaso, good morning to you. Shout out to everybody that's on Facebook, man, Twitch. I promise y'all, I'm about to pull it up and get y'all shouted out too, man. I love y'all, appreciate it. Make sure that y'all hit that like button, y'all.
Turn my other cheek and say sticks and stones may break my bone, but your words can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, I ain't been right more than I've been wrong, and it still can't hurt me. No, it just can't hurt me. No. No, you just can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, no, no.
In the heart, that's the point. Got to get you moving early this morning. Get the blood flow. Get the blood flowing. Get the energy going. Let's go.
Won't stop spinning around. I'm surprised you find me again. After all,
Susan, good morning to you. KFZ, good morning, brother. Very girl, good morning. It get a 9, good morning. It get a please be careful. Rabb, good morning.
Too consumed, but every part of my body is telling me to run away from you. Come a little bit closer, yeah, yeah. Come a little bit closer, yeah. You're a little bit crazy.
Good morning again, everyone. It's time to get this thing started and going, y'all. So let's get it. Like it or not, it's about to go down. Here we go, y'all. Good morning again.
Yeah, yeah, come a little bit closer, yeah. To all my ladies who got a brother that doesn't treat them right, put your finger right in his face and tell that man bye-bye. I'm too fly, I'm too fly.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning. Oh, wait a minute. Man, look here. I done lost.
David, go ahead and rerun the intro one more time.
Run the intro one more. I done lost my ever-loving mind.
Lost his goddamn mind this morning, y'all. Excuse me.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning, people. Happy Friday Eve, y'all.
Welcome to Like It or Not.
Slap B in head. Face slap.
Where we're free to tell the truth, James.
And not care who doesn't like it. Okay.
It is Thursday, July 1st, 2021. Thank you so much for joining us. We have on the screen with us now independent journalist Georgia Fort. And we have none other than our historian, Brother Carl Mack. Thank you all for listen, y'all been hanging out every day. Y'all are here, part of this, what we're doing.
Yes.
But I think this is the first time that we've had all of us on the screen. And the only person we're missing, and I miss my sister, Rebecca Azor. She is somewhere on somebody's vacation, on somebody's beach.
Living her best life. Man, if you look at I'm sure everybody has seen it. Her Instagram story, man, I'm jealous as hell.
I haven't seen them yet, but this is not the first time. And actually, so we were on yesterday. Obviously, we had the big panel, and it was an amazing panel. Thank you for everyone who helped put that together, because there was so much power on that panel yesterday. But I think this is the first time where it's just been the four of us. So Georgia, welcome.
Yeah, no, it is always a pleasure to be here. And man, we got a lot to discuss. But I'm ready to go on a vacation too. So
yes,
James, I feel you. I'm overdue.
Okay, way overdue.
Yeah, and then obviously Professor Mack, Dr. Mack, thank you so much for joining us again, and thank you for really. Well, a lot. We talk a lot offline. So thank you for all the stuff we talk about offline, but also thank you for being such a huge contributor to this show, particularly as it pertains to our history. Because I can ask, well, I don't have Google. Hey, Google, but if you do, what happened in Black history on today? If I needed to find out what happened in Black history on today, how could I find that out?
Well, obviously from the calendar. Well, first of all, good morning to you all, Georgia, DJ, and Brother Ben. If you had the calendar, every day of the year, somebody featured out of Black history. And today we're celebrating Benjamin O. Davis Sr., who was the first Black to be promoted to the rank of general in the United States Army. And then his son, B.O. Davis Jr., is of acclaimed fame for leading the 99th Pursuit Squadron, which you better know as the Tuskegee Airmen.
Nice.
Just wow. So and I thought that you know what? Shame on me for thinking that you were going to have to reach behind you and grab the calendar and look at it. You knew that from memory.
Oh, no, man. I woke up this morning and every day I walk into the kitchen, I start my day with, hey, Google, what happened on this day in Black history? So I get a little reminder.
There you go.
But I also want to say that I'm repping the institution for which I received my mechanical engineering degree, Mississippi State, because last night, for the first time in the school's history, they won a national championship by winning the College World Series. And because I saw a brother out there in left field, I said, yeah, we'll rep him today. So,
that's all right. That's all right. Well, congratulations to Mississippi State. Somebody said Hell Wildcats. I thought I heard somebody say Hell something.
Hell State, baby.
Oh, Hell State. Okay. I heard Hell, and I thought I heard Hell Wildcats. Well, we have a lot coming up that we're going to discuss today. Obviously, the top thing on a lot of people's minds is Bill Cosby, his release, the issue with Felicia Rashad, and we're gonna discuss it gloves off. Like I had a chance to speak with everyone, and I'm like, listen, even if we disagree on it, it is a conversation that Black folks need to be having. And
yes.
And I don't want and we'll talk about it. I don't want to get too deep into it now because we have Tara Samples also coming up. She is one of the senior advisors for the Nina Turner campaign for Congress for the 11th district in Ohio. And we're going to discuss the campaign as well as the endorsement that Jim Clyburn gave the opposition. And we're going to discuss that. There are two dynamic black women running for Congress there in the state of Ohio, the 11th district. But I've made it clear on this show that me and Sister Turner go way back. So Tara Samples is coming from that campaign, and she's going to speak with us about that. And then obviously Representative Chris Rabb from Philadelphia. He is going to come and he is going to participate in this discussion about critical race theory. He normally talks about reparations with us, but we're going to talk about critical race theory. And then I'm sure we're going to dovetail some reparations talking there for our friend, Dr. Mack. That said, all of that is to come. I just believe that it's us. I don't want white media to tell us how we should respond, particularly to Felicia Rashad. I don't particularly care what y'all do with Bill, and we're gonna play the clips. We're gonna go through the conversation, and that's gonna come up. We do have to go to some other conversations first, but just that much of it, I think I would love to go around the table, Georgia. But without getting into, because if we get into the depth of it, we're gonna be there for a while. I just want to know, what is your feeling on who? I feel like black folks should be the defining voice for whether or not they're trying to cancel Felicia Rashad. They're trying to get her removed from Howard University. I'm not personally with that. And feel free to speak your piece, even if you are.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that she's not wrong for using her voice. And let's be clear, she's not the one who was facing any kind of charges, right? And so if she goes on her personal social media page and she says whatever she wants to say about her friend, her colleague, someone that she worked with for decades, a defining part of her life, really. The legacy of that show far exceeds, I think, anything that any of the people on the show have done outside the show, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, how can you fault her for just basically commenting on the fact that he got out and saying how she feels about it? Yeah. And so I saw she did a tweet after her initial tweet, which was that there had been a miscarriage of justice. And she didn't elaborate on what she meant by that. And now we know for a fact that if this case has been overturned, even if it was on a technicality, right, that is still a miscarriage of justice.
Exactly.
So the people... Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, because we could get deep with it. We could get deep with it real quick, and that is a conversation that we're going to have because there are levels, there's nuances to this. Because there was an overzealous prosecution, and there was 60. No, I don't want to miss a single one. 60 accusers. So there's a lot to talk about, and we'll come back to it. I want to bring on, and we just lost her camera. So David, let me know if we're able. I want to bring in Councilwoman Tara Samples into the conversation and join us to discuss not that last conversation for sure, but the conversation about the race in the 11th district of Ohio. And I think we're going to have to pause for a second. So we're going to get her camera back so that we can see her as well as hear her. Dr. Mack, we talked about this. What are your general feelings about it? And you can save the best for last because as soon as Dr. Councilwoman Samples comes back on, we're going to go to that conversation. Go for it.
And the bottom line is I agree so much with what Sister Ford said, as it applies to Sister Rashad being able to express her thoughts, her sentiments about it. That's fine, because one of the things that that I did yesterday was I called up a plethora of people to just get their feelings about it, and it was as mixed as it could be. For some reason, white America wants to think that we're one homogeneous group with one homogeneous thought, and this is an example where we as Black folks have different thoughts about the exact same issue. And so, I certainly appreciated the fact that that she was able to express her opinion about it. Now, the idea that council culture is going to try to come in and try to remove her again, as Sister Ford said, there were no allegations against Sister Richard. And in her relationship with Mr. Cosby, she has every right to express her joy about the fact that he was released. Now, when it comes to, was it a miscarriage of justice? You know, that's what the debates will all be about. But there is no debate that he was released because of a technicality that in effect can affect all of us. How many times does the legal system grab somebody who's in the drug game? You know, let's take the mob, for instance. When all of a sudden they grab one of them, and before that person started talking, they had to make a deal with the prosecution. And when they made that deal is the deal. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent is the deal. So now you got another prosecutor saying, no, I'm going to renege on that. So whatever the technicality was, the state Supreme Court said, based on that, he was not afforded due process. So from that standpoint, you know, what she stated is a miscarriage of justice. From that standpoint, yes. But now on the other side of it, when you look at those women and the allegations that they had and what was uncovered from his testimony, his deposition, where he, you know, the question was asked, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But overall, Sister Richard expressing her sentiments, I guarantee you, if you put 1,000 Black folks on here, you know, I doubt very seriously you're going to get overwhelming majority who feels
one way or the other.
One way or the other.
Yeah, no, because James, like when we first spoke about this, like we didn't disagree. We just saw it from slightly different angles. But I mean, I think that's exactly what Dr. Mack is talking about. We're not Black folks don't all have to agree on this thing. Go for it.
Absolutely, and you're right. Just like everyone said, even like Dr. Mack said, it's a mixed bag of emotions. Not justifying anything that Bill Cosby did, but if you want to be honest with it, the justice system effed up. Prosecutor messed up. It happens every day with Black cases, Black families all the time. So now it just worked for Bill because he has that money for it to work with Bill. And they went against him. And those prosecutors came in. If they wanted him to stay in there, should have never made that deal.
Because here's my... Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it. My bad.
No, I was going to say on Felicia Rashad, she stated what happened. Miscarriage of justice. It wasn't miscarriage of justice if you technically think about it. It really was. So trying to cancel Felicia Rashad, y'all can go somewhere, but that's not going to happen with Mama.
Yeah. Listen. Like I don't even know how old Felicia Rashad is. It don't matter. She is one of our elders. Yes. And she is now the dean. And I like what Howard said. So there's a whole lot. We're still having some technical issues with our first guest. And so we'll come back and circle back to that conversation. But you know, it is totally okay that Black folks have a difference of opinion on this, but I think this is when it comes to Felicia Rashad and y'all trying to counsel her. Nah, that's not something for MSNBC to decide. That's not something for CNN to decide. That's not something because she's at Howard University. You see, she's at a HBCU. This is something for Black folks to decide. And as disgusting as this, and we're going to play a clip of this, but I don't want to play much of it because. One thing is for sure, I think we all agree on with 60 accusers and with his own. We have a clip. The very first clip I want to play is so that everyone is clear. I can't speak for nobody else on the screen. Bill Cosby was on Larry King Live years ago, and Bill Cosby confessed to putting Quaaludes, putting drugs. I don't know if he said Quaaludes, but because it's been a long time since I saw the clip, but we have the clip. We're going to play the clip and he just admits it. Run that clip for me so we can start.
Spanish fly was the thing that all boys from age 11 on up to death, we will still be searching for Spanish fly. That's right. And what was the old story was if you took a little drop, no, it was on the head of a pin. That's right. And drop you put it in a Coca-Cola. Don't matter. It doesn't make it. And the girl would drink it and she's hello, America. No, we don't answer that.
Okay. Cut that part. Larry King, wait, is Larry King even still alive? It's been a while.
Sounded like he was with it too.
Yeah, exactly, Georgia.
He's alive.
Like he knew.
Larry King passed.
He knew. Yeah. He was finishing the sentence for him.
And
so
let's be clear. Go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's be clear. Even with what Felicia Rashad said in terms of this is a miscarriage of justice, she never dismissed the allegations. She
Absolutely.
never minimized the allegations or women's experiences. And so the unfortunate thing, and this is where it gets complex, and I don't like to air out family business outside of the family, but I will say that there are other Bill Cosbys in our community, older men
Thanks,
that have
Georgia.
been problematic, that say things, that make comments, that do things. And so there has also been a culture in our community where even I remember grandmothers would, when they had their grandbabies over, sleep in the room with the grandbabies and leave their husband in the room by themselves to protect the children. Because there has been abuse that has happened from older men. And obviously, this is not everybody, but it is a reality. And, in our community, in our culture, sometimes, you have that one uncle that's just funny. And it is kind of a thing. It becomes a thing within families. And so there's a broader issue here, an underlying issue here that I think if we took the opportunity to address it, could help advance our culture, is how do you deal with people who are abusive? What is the appropriate way to deal with that? Especially when you're talking about, in his case, it was women, but sometimes you have those people who cross the line and start doing this to our young people.
Yeah.
So how do you confront it, and how do you address it in a way where it doesn't cause divide? And so the thing, although this is a very sensitive topic because of the complexities, the reality is that Bill Cosby was released from based on a technicality, and it's not to minimize anybody's experiences, but people get so caught up, especially victims, other people who have experienced abuse, they can't separate their own experience and trauma, and they're projecting that on him. And so it's a very complex thing, and it should be a conversation that's handled delicately, but it's still a conversation that we need to have for so many reasons. We need to have this conversation because we need to be talking about why the criminal justice system continues to fail Black men and how they end up incarcerated, even though there was a technicality that they shouldn't have. We need to talk about the abuse that's happening in our community. We need to talk about why in the world could a national television talk show host go and have a guest and they could sit there and ha ha he about drugging women.
Yes.
But Georgia, the other aspect to it is, when you say within our culture, we all, if you go back through history, there was a time when grown men were marrying 12 and 15-year-old girls. Yeah. And this wasn't in our community. This was in America in general. So this type of behavior has been pervasive throughout this country. And so again, I have to go back to what Brother Ben said. I stand on the side, even when we're talking about, if we spend so much time talking about the technicality of what happened, it does minimize, whether we intend to or not, it does minimize what happened. Because I keep thinking to myself, what if one of those women were my daughter, my mother, my sister? I don't care about the technicality. That fool was wrong. And especially, even when you talk about the technicality, part of what was so convincing to me and a light shined on the situation was that when that deal was made, that's when Cosby sat in that deposition and they asked him, have you ever purchased Quaaludes for the purpose of drugging women for sex? And his answer was yes. That piece, usually in a trial of some heinous crime, you're looking for the evidence. Well, the evidence couldn't have been any clearer when the man himself says what he says. And now you add to that this conversation between he and Larry King. And the most dangerous part of what Cosby said, all boys. I was a boy. I ain't never played around with no Spanish flies.
Never.
As far as I'm concerned, when real men don't do that, we don't roll like that. So I have, as far as the sensitivity towards those victims, that is, when you say it's a complex issue, without question, it's complex. But from the victim standpoint, it is absolutely insane that many women can come and talk about the same story. And then this man says, yes, that's what I did. And now, through a technicality, he's free. It's horrible.
Let's take a look at the video, this press conference, and I don't want to play it all because, again, we all agree here on this screen, not the entirety of the Black community. We don't speak for the Black community. We just speak for those who agree with us, and we agree that 60 people, 60 women, the evidence is there. The reason he is out is because of a technicality, and that is salt in the wound of those victims. And it is a complex issue. So that's the reason I'm not going to play this entire thing, because as the attorney speaks, the rhetoric that he uses is offensive, but I do think we need to listen to it. And so let's take a listen.
Always use his celebrity, his name, his likeness to uplift women. This is a man who refused to perform at the White House for Nixon. Nixon put him on a compliments list in the 60s, along with so many other great names like Dick Gregory, Jane Fonda. How could a man who was being watched by the FBI every day be raping and drugging women in the 60s or 70s, especially a black man? Today, innocence came to Mr. Cosby with the help of these wonderful attorneys. These are women and men from all walks of life. As I said earlier, James Brown made a song, it's a man's world. There would be nothing without a woman and girl. Mrs. Cosby was that woman. For 57 years, the queen, the matriarch, we got one of
of the team that we put together. Very proud to be part of this case.
That's enough.
We always thought,
like, what they should have done was carry their asses inside and just gone to sit down somewhere. But y'all out here celebrating like y'all are. Go ahead, Bubba.
And it's crazy because you making it sound like that he didn't do this. How can a man not do XYZ? But here it is. He admitted to it. He said yes. So don't come out here and make it seem like he did nothing wrong. When he admitted that he did something wrong, he went on a whole damn national TV show in '91 and admitted to putting Spanish fly in the girl's drink. So I mean, it's crazy for the attorneys to even come out there and even justify him in that situation. His comments should have been on the technicality. Mr. Cosby was released and left it at that, because you made a deal, which means you admitted fault, that you did this. So don't come out here making it seem like that he did nothing at all. When you have other victims out here, these victims out here that have gone through it and experienced this, it is salt in the wound. It's like a slap in the face, a hard slap in the face.
Yeah, and the other aspect, to try to change the narrative that he's uplifting all women. I remember when I was the chief servant of the Seattle King County NAACP, I remember the number of calls that I got from white radio stations because Cosby was talking about what women ain't doing, talking about single mothers and what they ain't doing. And I took it personally because he was talking about my mama. I know that Nikki Giovanni had issues with it when Cosby sat within the national convention of the NAACP and just absolutely dogged black women, as far as I was concerned, dogged black men, telling us what we weren't doing. And look, I don't mean to get too absolute personal, but raising children is, there's no guarantees of that. And you look at the troubles that, the issues he was having with his own families. But again, to come out and talk about, that was a blanket statement about all single black mothers. And so to now come in and talk about him uplifting, and again, just because you've done good publicly doesn't mean that your entire life is like that. And I think a lot of us got confused because we couldn't differentiate Dr. Huxtable with Dr. Cosby. So, it was tough for us to do that. And again, with that philanthropic life that he was living, take a look at one of the most philanthropic men, in the world, Bill Gates. Now all of a sudden we're understanding that Gates was running around with Jeffrey Epstein. So, we don't know what's going on in the private side. But, again, I remember looking at a lot of video footage, and Bill Gates was hanging out with the Playboy, Hugh Hefner, up in the Playboy mansion. So I'm just saying. And to that, I remember asking some of the sisters about that. Like, if you have that kind of access to sex, why would you go and drug women? And every one of the sisters said the same thing to me. They said, Carl, because it wasn't about sex. It was about control. That's why the drug was in there. But that was their perspective, and I'm sharing that.
Well, and I think you bring up a valid point of people not being able to separate Bill Cosby as an individual from the character that he portrayed on scene, and when you look at even that time period, that era, you talked about him calling out single mothers. We know that single family homes were at an all-time high. And so a lot of people grew up and Dr. Huxtable was the only father figure that they knew.
Yeah.
So you're also thinking of the psychology aspects of how you're asking people to crucify the only father they've known, right? And so there's that dynamic. But on the other hand, you can't deny the evidence, as we've pointed out. You cannot deny the fact that he's admitted this, and that you have 60 women who have come forward and said that he did this to me. And so for me, even though, Ben, I think you said something like, it's not complex. You got 60 victims. Yeah. When you look at it that way, it's not complex at all. But when you look at the fact that this was the first time America had a Black father figure that had this success in Hollywood, it gets complex also when you're talking about him being in people's homes every single day, and for some people being the only father that they were raised with. So I think that's, and the timing. So we know in America historically that when Black people are approaching greatness or really become, leaders, like what we saw with Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, when people are in the Black community reaching a certain level of accomplishment, historically, there has been an assassination. And if it's not a physical assassination that claims their life, an assassination of their character. And so I think people were also very skeptical because of the timing of when this happened, because Bill Cosby, if you remember, before all of these allegations came forward, he was in negotiations to buy a network. And so the timing, I think a lot of people were pointing to the timing. And so a lot of people were skeptical and were having reservations on believing these women. And so, I think as a woman myself who knows people who have been affected by this issue, I absolutely believe the victims. I saw the evidence. We just watched the clip where he admitted to doing it. But I think that when we're going to have this conversation about Bill Cosby, that we should talk about it in the way that it's 3D, because there are layers, and there's layers to why people are polarized on this issue. Just even in the Black community, people are on all sides of the spectrum of this issue, and for valid reasons.
And Georgia, let's throw a little historical insight into single Black men.
Well, let me only because we have a second guest that we need to get in real quick and hold that historical context for the B side of this conversation, because we're going to flesh this out. We have to. There's so many layers here that we have to flesh out. And we're going to do as many as we can in the time that we have. But I want to bring on Representative Chris Rabb. He is state representative from Pennsylvania's 200th district. And thank you so much for joining us this morning. We did tell you that we wanted to discuss some clips for some critical race theory, but we brought you in the heat of the conversation, and I saw you had some comments. So I would be remiss if I didn't give you a chance to say what's on your mind about this topic.
You sure you want that?
Well, keep in mind, my kids are watching, Representative. So yes, but go in that context, say what you got to say.
Well, I mean, appreciate being back on the show, and I love the exchange. Listen, he broke my heart, but he broke my heart long before I knew he was a sexual predator. He broke my heart when he revealed his true self, what he thought about poor black folk.
Yes.
He revealed himself when he chose coke over the divestment movement in South Africa. He broke my heart when he supported minstrel capitalism, where he wanted to be the head Negro of a major network. When we talk about success, I mean, we implicate ourselves. There are forms of success that don't really do much for black folk, even though it amasses a lot of money for the folks who make the deals and the people around them. But if you are simply replicating systems of oppression, then I can't show you the love, because listen, I can relate to a Dr. Huxtable. I grew up in that kind of environment. I didn't need a Dr. Huxtable. It was an affirmation, but I had that at home. And there are other black folk who experienced similar dynamics. It was not the first. He did not create it. It was not fiction. We're talking about multiple generations of black middle class folk, the most important of whom did not have a lot of financial wealth, but helped black generation meaning ways, often behind the scenes. That was meaningful to me. Him becoming a bigger part of the problem by amassing more wealth meant absolutely nothing to me. And we are implicated in reveling around that type of ambition, because that's the ambition that will kill us collectively. Not to take away from anything that you're saying,
like it or not.
My God, like it or not,
right? Yes,
that was. I absolutely love when people come through this. I mean, the black folks got something to say, y'all. We got the analysis, because Representative Rabb, what you said right there is the absolute spot on truth. Now, because I know you're short on time, I want to move to a couple other things that I want to discuss with you. Critical race theory has become the new boogeyman, and it has become the war on Christmas. It's become the war on terror. It's become the welfare queen. It's become the rallying cry through which white supremacy gets to get away with their dog whistles on the national stage. And you've been talking about it extensively. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, you contextualized it quite well. It is whatever. It's tofu. Tofu doesn't taste like anything, right? It's how you cook it, right? So if you give it to a white supremacist chef, you know what it's going to taste like. So they don't even know. I went up to the dude, my colleague in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, who introduced the bill to ban critical race theory from being taught in public schools K through 12, which is funny because it's not taught presently. In fact, critical race theory is only taught in a handful of law schools and graduate level graduate schools of education. It's not expansive, but he didn't know what critical race theory was, and I kind of knew it because he's not a bright man or particularly invested in due diligence. So I approached him. I went to the right side of the aisle, which very few Democrats go, particularly black, in the state legislature, full-time state legislature in the country. So it's this massive room, and I was surrounded by red. And I went up to him and I said, hey, I actually know some critical race theory professors. Would you like to speak with them? Because I see that you have, in your overview of your forthcoming bill, mischaracterized what it is. And I thought, if you want to know, I can introduce you to some practitioners. He says, no, I'm good. Okay, that's interesting. So I lean over to the majority chair of agriculture, another conservative who I have a decent relationship with. And I said, Chairman, I would never introduce a farming bill without talking to an actual farmer. And he just chuckled. So the guy says, oh, well, I talked to the parents, and the parents don't like what's going on in the schools. And, we should just talk about how everyone is equal and so forth. I said, you mean everybody who's straight? And he just looked at me quizzically. And I said, well, obviously in Pennsylvania, LGBTQ Pennsylvanians are second-class citizens. Literally, they don't have the same rights. He goes, "We're done talking here." And I said, "I just thought you wanted some, input." I said, "Because I'm talking about you on social media and I'm calling your bill racist. And I wanted to say it to your face on the House floor because I don't like saying anything about somebody behind someone's back that I wouldn't say to their face."
That's it. That's it.
I look forward to doing the same to Cosby one day.
Like it or not.
Go ahead, Brother Mack.
So Representative, another thing is, in its quintessential form, all critical race theory is, as far as it is in the simplistic form, is just to talk about the history of this country and how race played a part in it and what was the impact of it, right?
That's right.
And so the other thing that the opponents have to recognize is, how did they use, from a political science Charles Murray, the bell curve ideology?
Mm-hmm.
How did they use ideology of the lost cause in history, when the lost cause taught that the Civil War wasn't fought over slavery, slave owners were benevolent, we as the enslaved were happy to be about it, that the Confederacy, this was an honorable battle because they had to fight Northern aggression. And that ideology is throughout history books. Nobody ever had an issue with that. But now when it comes to an opportunity for them to say, look, the one thing that America has never done, and if you go on all the white television shows, and if there's a discussion about the issue of race, it is a very small discussion. And they say, well, I wish we had more time to do that. So
Exactly.
America has never wanted to get inside. Now they claim, and when I say they, I'm not talking about the white supremacists. I'm talking about the white liberals who also have this issue, and they're impeding the progress of having a serious dialogue about it. So, that's the other side that we need to challenge them on, is that you had no problem with the ideology of the lost cause being indoctrinated throughout history. You had no problem embracing Charles Murray's concept of the bell curve, where they literally talked about the relationship between race and intellect. So those are the other sides of it. But now that we want to talk about how race has affected every aspect of life in America for Black folks, no, we don't want to discuss that. So, and I'm so proud of you. And I so agree with you on the Cosby situation, because I can tell you, when my mother and father divorced, there was a man that she was involved with, who was as much a father to me as many. And a lot of the ethics that I have around hard work, I learned from this man, who was not my biological father. And when he and my mother separated, he still, to this day, I call him my dad. So we had a lot of those inside of our community. But thank you so much, brother. And I love what you said. And for those who don't like it or not, said it. Appreciate.
I want to bring Rep Rabb. I don't know how much more time you have with you, because there's a lot to this conversation. But the
Happy to
one
stay
day,
on.
so you have a few more minutes. You can stay on. Okay, so I want to bring in Councilwoman Tara Samples into the conversation. I want to particularly around critical race theory. Now, Councilwoman Samples, we brought you on to talk about the race in the 11th district, Nina Turner, and how that race is going. But obviously and it was serendipitous, because before I even reached out to you, or we did not know this, we were going to be discussing this morning with the backdrop of Jim Clyburn endorsing Nina's opponent. And I want to backdoor that conversation going through critical race theory. What are your thoughts on this just derangement that white conservatism has with regard to critical race theory, but then also the complicity of white liberals who I'm not sure that they actually want the truth told either.
Well, good morning for having me. And Representative Rabb, you are a truth teller, and you are one of my new best friends, just for that little segment. I think what we are now seeing here in our country is telling of a system that needs to be unrigged. We are now have been dealing with a system that is now living it out loud in front of America. And, we need truth tellers like Representative Rabb, like a Senator Nina Turner, who can really speak truth to what we are dealing with here in this country. And, there's so much here to unpack that has happened in the last 48 hours, not just here in this district, but across this country. As I listened to the comments and the segment on Mr. Cosby, and we've got some work to do. We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And one of the things I appreciate about Nina Turner, and again, like I was on Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap. That's the our brother show this morning. And Marcus Farrell, he said it best. He was like, listen, there are all those candidates are dynamic. The opposition, they're dynamic, right? They're not Nina Turner, but they're black women. They're dynamic, and so and we said it and we framed it that way because when Jill Clyburn came out to endorse Chantel Brown, the name is Chantel, right? When Jill Clyburn came out to endorse her, there is a strong backlash from white progressives, and I want to keep them at bay. Y'all stay over there for a second. But in terms of like the black community, no one politician speaks for all of the black community. There are going to be some people who look at that endorsement and say, great. And there are going to be a lot of people in the 11th district who probably don't even know who Jim Clyburn really is. I don't mean to throw you under the bus because we didn't plan on discussing this, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, no, you're not throwing me under the bus, but you're speaking truth. With all due respect, this is not South Carolina. It's just not. We're in a district that needs a Nina Turner in office because we are dealing with some real hard issues here. We're dealing with homelessness. We're dealing with poverty. We're dealing with gun violence that has taken over this district and this state that we've never seen in a very long time. And endorsements are great. And we all have our set of endorsements, but it's the work that Senator Turner has done, not just in Cleveland and in Akron and in the district, but what she's done across this country. And because of the work that she has done, standing up for people, black, brown, yellow, white, you name it, those people have come to her defense because you very rarely find a humanitarian like Senator Turner. She is a modern day Shirley Chisholm, as we all know. And to watch individuals from outside come in to try to influence and flex their power in a district that is crying for someone to speak up for them, just based off of the last 24 hours of us being able to raise six figures based off of that endorsement, it speaks to who she is and the work that she has done.
So Councilwoman, if you don't mind, it's hard for me to believe that an endorsement come from Clyburn without you all even soliciting the endorsement. And so what is his problem, if any, with Sister Turner?
I can't speak for the reasoning behind it. I think this is more about, unfortunately, Senator Sanders than it is about Nina Turner. And that's unfortunate. And that's the unfortunate part, because you have yourself a Black woman who has been drugged a lot by her own people for just wanting to do what's right. Always doing what's right. And I think that's the unfortunate part about here. It's fine that people go and get endorsements, but endorsements are great, but the work that she has done should have allowed all of them to sit on the sideline and say, you know what, let these Democrats, because there's 13 of them running, let them, fight it out in the primary. Right. And then, this is the problem I think we have within our party system is, when it's not the person that they want, this is what happens. And sometimes you have to, not sometimes, all the time, I think it's important for us to listen to the people. We need to support the candidate that the people want in these seats. And that doesn't happen.
And so, listen, I'm not going to pretend like I understand the politics in Ohio. So, and there's probably a lot of us that are listening in that don't know the politics in Ohio. So when you say she's been drugged through, can you give us just an example of her body of work that met opposition from our community?
Oh, I don't think we have enough time on this show, but we're talking about someone who has been out here doing the work. But I mean, if we go back some over 15 years when Stephanie Tubbs Jones, God rest her soul, passed away unexpectedly, Senator Turner was going to run for that seat. I mean, we had Black people who depicted her in a Call and Post Black newspaper as Aunt Jemima. There was no need for it. But I mean, just because she wanted to be a voice in that space for us long ago, she didn't just wake up when this opening happened and say, I want to run for Congress. This is something that she has wanted to do for a long time. And even when she decided to support Senator Sanders, I mean, it was our people who was in opposition against her because she didn't fall in line to do what was told of her. And she stood up for what was right. And she stood up and supported the person who was speaking to the issues and the needs of the people in this country.
And can I just throw something real quick?
Yeah, please. I was just going to come to you.
There's also a real kind of problematic undertone to how we talk about the sister, because some people think that she is just somehow a pawn or puppet of Bernie Sanders, which is deeply disrespectful. And I got to tell you a personal story. I was being recruited as a progressive Black elected in Pennsylvania, of which there are too few. And the Sanders campaign was coming at me hard, trying to get me to endorse. And long story short, there was a racist exchange. One of Sanders' people, highly racist, foul, from someone high up in his campaign. It got back to Nina Turner, and she called me and said, "This is unacceptable. This needs to be addressed immediately. I'm blowing this up. This is unacceptable." She didn't have to do that, but she did. I didn't ask her to do anything, and I didn't tell her. She stepped up because that's the type of sister that she is. People like to think that because she is a strong advocate for Senator Sanders, that she does not have her own opinions, her own values, her own work ethic, etc. And that's not true. And that happens a lot to Black folk.
Especially
it happens,
Black women.
Yes.
Especially Black women, especially. Now, listen, I'm not here to make any friends, especially when you turn on, when you see, when Nina Turner, I believe, I don't know if it was an official endorsement, but back in 2015 in the primaries, she initially supported Hillary Clinton, very briefly. And then she did go with Bernie Sanders. And when she got with Bernie Sanders, she hit the ground running because there was a symbiotic relationship between her prophetic fire and what Sanders was saying in terms of economic justice. But it was the fact that she had the nerve to not do what the Clintons said that led to, in 2016 in Philadelphia, Rabb, we didn't know each other then, but I'm sure we were both in the same city. In 2016, they canceled her. They refused to allow her to speak at the DNC. She was on stage getting ready to go out, and they refused to let her, after Bernie Sanders could speak. The actual candidate who opposed Hillary Clinton to the end of the world and back again was allowed to speak, but not Nina Turner. And that's because she's a Black woman who had a nerve to speak truth to power, even to the Clinton machine.
You said it. You said it all right there. I was in Philadelphia with Senator Turner at that very moment when that happened, and that was one of the hardest moments to ever experience with your friend, someone who's just been out here fighting for people, to be denied the right just seconds before she was supposed to go on, to be told that she couldn't go on because she hadn't endorsed someone. And the unfortunate part is to have other Black women sign on to that against her. And I think that's what we have to deal with here in our country and in our spaces, is that it's okay for us to stand up for one another. It's okay for us to stand up beside one another and support. And when we're doing wrong, tell each other we're doing wrong. But I mean, we have to start standing up for what's right and not just falling in line. And for goodness sake, standing up for one another. And it's long overdue. As a Black woman in this space, I've experienced it time and time again. A lot of times our biggest adversaries be our own people. But now we have somebody there that really will speak truth to power for us and do the things that we have constantly been promised by politicians that never happen. And I think that's where the biggest fear is. We have someone that is going to go there and actually keep a promise, promise keeper.
So Councilwoman Samples and Rep Rabb, this is where the parallel is coming to me, and maybe I'm seeing this wrong, but help me with this. In the Republican Party, we find it absolutely insanity that the Sister Cheney could come up and say, Trump is lying about stealing the election, and then watch the Republican Party turn on her. I see the same thing. What I'm listening to you all tell me is that same thing happening. And we as Democrats or folks who are partial to the Democratic Party thought that what the Republicans was doing was just asinine. And now, is that what we're talking about is happening with Sister Turner?
Brother Mack, you said it. You said all that I don't need to say. That's exactly what we're
Like
experiencing.
it or not, that's what we do here.
I would agree. Georgia, I want you to get in on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, what it makes me think of is how we need to normalize the truth, unfortunately, right? And we need to normalize people who are speaking up and standing for truth so much that they don't have to pay a political price on the back end, or compromise any of their social capital on the back end, just for simply standing in place and speaking truth. And so as I hear you talk about the price that Nina Turner has had to pay to just simply speak truth and fight for what's right, this is a simple question, but hopefully it goes a long way. Like, how can we support Nina Turner, especially those who are not in her district? What is it that she needs in this moment where she's at with her campaign?
Absolutely. Well, she definitely needs money for the mission. As you all have probably seen the headlines, is there's some opera group that's come in and put 6 figures into an anti-anybody but Nina campaign. But being able to reach out into this district, I mean, we have text apps that can text people speaking about her in a positive light on a Benjamin Dixon type of show. So individuals know that we have ourselves a people's champion who is running for Congress in the 11th Congressional District. We do not have a puppet here. Yeah. We have someone who is going to do right all the time by the people. So, money for the mission at ninaturner.com, very important right now. We early voting is getting ready to start on July the 7th. And it is important that people exercise their rights to vote, because we can complain all day about what is not being done in our communities. But if we do not show up to vote, all we're doing is complaining.
Yeah. And Sister Ford, I so appreciate that question you asked, and Councilwoman Samples, I appreciate the answer. So because of that issue of us simply complaining and not doing it, Sister Ford, you asked the question. So Councilwoman, I'm saying to you right now, tell me what is the maximum amount? And I ain't really got it like that, but you tell me what is the maximum amount that I can contribute to Sister Turner's campaign. And I'm saying to you right now in front of God and everybody that's coming to you today, what is the maximum amount?
Listen, Brother Mack, you look like someone who got $2,600.
So it was said.
You look like
so let it be written. So we're gonna take it. Listen,
I'm saying to you right now, I ain't saying I got it like that, but if you telling me it's $2,600, I'm saying to you, just in the spirit of her last name, because she reminded me of Nat Turner with her spirit. So I am contributing $2,600 to her campaign.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I appreciate what you all are doing. And Sister Ford, thank you so much for teeing that up for us.
Yeah. That's awesome. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to finish the conversation about Bill Cosby and the conversation about Phylicia Rashad, because y'all do what y'all want to with Bill, but y'all going to leave Phylicia alone. We're going to talk about that. Councilwoman Tara Samples, also one of the senior advisors for Nina Turner's 11th Congressional District run. Thank you so much for joining us. And Representative Rabb, now either of you have more time to spare, I would love to talk with you more, but I do want to be respectful of your time. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, more on the Cosby story after this.
Good morning again, everyone. Man, that's some good conversation over here, boy. We are back, but before we get to everything, we want to make sure that we shout out everybody, our new patrons that have joined. So I'm going to go through this list real quick, y'all. And hey, I need y'all. I really need y'all to go to patreon.com/likenitnot, patreon.com/likenitnot. Y'all go ahead and get your Patreon on. You get to be part of the after party. You get to do the what else, David, am I trying to say? The patron parties that are on on Fridays. As a matter of fact, patron party tomorrow night. Make sure that you have your face in the place. You don't want to miss it, y'all. Patreon.com/likenitnot, patreon.com/likenitnot. Shout out to Timothy B, new patron. New Twitch subscribers, we have Brown Coat Blue, who resubscribed with Prime and commented. Let's go! They've been subscribed for 3 months. The One Winged Dragon resubscribed and commented on our subscriber-only line emotes. Yes, on Twitch, we have subscriber-only line emotes, and they are dope as hell. And they've been subscribed for 3 months. Moose Soup resubscribed and commented, cops are bad, okay, cops are bad, okay, and they've been subscribed for 3 months as well. The Chicken Fried Dragon resubscribed and commented, good morning. They have been subscribed for 3 months. Murderino Dragon resubscribed and commented, wee woo, just signed up for the next 6 months with y'all. Wee woo, my .com just crashed. Love you. I love y'all, man. Y'all are animated. I'm reading how I feel that y'all read it, okay? And then we have Mimosa Dragon, who gifted 5 subscriptions, and also Moose Soup gifted 1 subscription to Fun Sweet. Shout out to everybody, man. Love y'all. Appreciate it. Man, y'all are like the family, okay? Make sure you go to patreon.com/likenitnot, patreon.com/likenitnot. Join. We got a party tomorrow. Don't want to miss it. Be there. Be square, y'all. Let's get to this music. Let's go. And wait a minute. I got to pause the music and give a big birthday shout out to our brother Lateef. Brother Lateef Mims, happy birthday, brother, to you, man. Hope you enjoy your day. Turn up, bro. It's your birthday.
Now, sometimes they hurt. I stay high when bullets fly.
So if you in the chat, make sure. David said he could have removed the wee woo, but he wanted me to hear it. He wanted to hear it. David, you're a jerk, okay? Thanks, David. Love you. Again to everyone in the chat rooms, wherever you are streaming from, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, family. Good morning to everybody. Good morning, Mama. I saw you in the chat room earlier. Good morning, Papa. Love y'all, all right? Okay, now I gotta learn the song because that note just took me there. Shout out to Justice. Justice, I see you down there, Justice. Good morning. All right, y'all. Don't make sure that y'all don't break anything in your house, okay? I will take you there, but I'm trying not to. Roller Dragon, good morning.
I close my eyes
brother Marcus in the chat. Marcus, good morning, brother. Good morning. What's going on? Marcus, I know. Just wait till I get the new costume.
We should still have fun, though we say we're done. Yes, I just wanna get done with you. For the last time, I can call you mine. Once more than I swear we are through. We should still have fun, though we say we're done. Yes, I just wanna get done with you. For the last time, I can call you mine. Once more than I swear we are through.
Michael 147, thank you for your super chat. Because Tiger Cat Sunday cannot. I appreciate y'all. All right, y'all. It is time for more Like It or Not. The conversation is about to get more in-depth and detailed. So welcome back to the screen, everybody, y'all. Like it or not, y'all.
Hey, welcome back. Can you guys? I just feel like I can't hear myself good, but it could just be me. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Let's dig down into this conversation a little bit more about. And before we make that pivot, I want to say one last thing about Sister Turner, and really about that entire conversation, because we're in a situation here in this country where, you know, there are people, and you can keep everybody on the screen. I'm not gonna be long at all here. It is difficult to be black and be free in this country. It is so difficult because. Do y'all know what it has to be like to have the entire weight of the political democratic institution come down against you? Rabb sounds like you do. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, that hit kind of close, brother. Yes,
right. That's nothing to sneeze. Like, listen, I've had the entirety of Twitter left come after me, and that was enough for me to block 5,000 people. So what do you think? People at the highest level of this political conversation, which Nina Turner is, she's at the highest level of this political conversation in the political discourse in this country, and to be targeted by the entire infrastructure of the Democratic Party. And I don't care what color they are, black, white, whatever. The point is that let's pray for our sister, because she's got a lot going on. A lot of people coming after her,
and the deafening silence too. Right? If you put yourself out there and you hear crickets from the people who you would hope got you, I mean, that deafening silence is almost as bad as the screams. And we have to consider both sides. When I posted something about Palestine, and I've been in office for 5 years. So I was elected the same night as what's his name in 2016. So if you put all of the hate mail I got in my first 4 years, and you compare it to the last 4 weeks after I posted about Palestine on my Facebook page, it just blew it out of the water, because they have a troll army for anything that appears to be or is Israel.
Oh, okay.
They have a whole network. And they will employ not just Israeli citizens or folks who have dual citizenship. They will also employ white evangelical racists who believe it's the Holy Land just minus the Jews, right? So, and they came after me hard. I had to actually file charges against somebody. The level of hatred and threats just in that one singular post was more than everything I'd ever said or done or in response to it. And I did not have the listen. That's one of the third rails. You cannot talk about Zionism. You cannot do it.
And when you feel the weight of Sister Turner, where I don't want to overplay it, but can I just say, like, as a person, as anybody, matter of fact, we can go around the screen. We can go around the screen and each of us talk about the situations in our life where we have been the most exposed and we are attacked from every single angle. I'm not trying to make a martyr out of Sister Turner, but I know these circles. These are some vicious people around these streets. You know, this is no play thing. When they come after you, they come after your livelihood. They come after your livelihood and try to make it so that you can't work again. They come after your reputation so that you don't have the very thing that you built on and you stood on. And they come after, everything that they possibly can. And they even come through our own community. I didn't want to belabor that point too long, but I don't know if anybody else has anything to say about that. I just wanted to make sure that we put that fine point on the conversation, because I kind of have a 1% understanding of what it is to be flying at a certain elevation and have everybody coming after to attack you. And then, like you said, Representative Rabb, some of the people you thought would defend you are now standing down. So
to the point that Rev Rabb just discussed his own experience of speaking, what they perceive to be speaking against Israel. You know, we just watched another brother, Mark Hill, experience that same thing with CNN. And so, you know, and my personal example of it is that when I was president of Seattle King County NAACP, there was a state attorney general by the name of Christine Gregoire, who was running for governor. And the headlines in the largest paper in Seattle, the Seattle Times, talked about the racial dilemma of Gregoire, that when she was in college, she joined this all-white sorority that clearly had a policy of keeping blacks out. And so we spoke against that. And not only did we speak against it from that standpoint, but the other reason we spoke against it is because when we invited her to our community to talk about what she was going to do to support our community, in light of the fact that the only African-American owned nursing home in the state, she led efforts to close it down. So we spoke against her. And because I was still employed, you know, as an engineer with Seattle King County, and my work within the framework of the NAACP was completely volunteer, all of a sudden she started contacting HR to find out how is it that I'm able to be at a press conference when technically I should have been at work. And so I told her at King County, when she comes after me, you better inform me of what that looks like, because I was a non-exempt employee, and every time card, whenever I had to leave to go do the work of our community, I would put down 3 hours or 4.5 hours, however many hours I worked. But being a non-exempt employee, you had to take the whole 8 hours if you were there. So if she wanted to bring that fight to me, please bring it on. So you clearly understand that situation when the world turns against you. But I will say this, I can't say that the world turned against me. Because of the work that we did in that community, as with Sister Turner, the black community was like, you can come after some of them, but you come after Brother Mack and just know you got to get through us to get to him. And I certainly appreciated that love and support.
Yeah, that's awesome. Georgia.
Yeah, it makes me think of Ilhan Omar and the way that she was attacked and ridiculed by Trump when he was in office. And for me, as a journalist, is very different than, you know, the rhetoric that, you know, happens in the political realm. But I would say as a journalist, you're also advocating for truth, amplifying truth, being an independent journalist and not citing the same sources as mainstream media. There's controversy there. And so for me, I think the experience I had was working in mainstream media, doing the story on the chief of police and his family's connection to a lynching, and then being fired 2 weeks later, but on paper saying was for something else, and not Not one colleague spoke up. My immediate supervisor did not advocate for me. The HR rep in the company did not advocate for me. It was a direct attack by the general manager, and that was hurtful. A few years later, I went back into that community to cover the 100-year anniversary of those lynchings, and was doing so for a different outlet, and it was very eerie. This white guy pulls up as I'm doing my stand-up. He gets out of his car and he just starts taking pictures of me. And he didn't say anything. He didn't say hi. He just starts taking my photo. And so having worked with other individuals who have been doxxed by white supremacists, having, your personal address published on the internet, and having, threats that people are going to show up to your house and harm you, especially when you have a family. For me, it's not been so much of my livelihood that has been a concern as much as it has been my family's safety in doing this work. And so when you're speaking up for truth and you're speaking against systems, right, there is a price that you pay for that, and whether that is your livelihood, your social capital, reputation, or your safety. Trust me, Ben, I have well over 1,000 people on my block list as well.
yeah. James, it get like that, man. It gets to the point where you're out here by yourself. And maybe the world didn't turn against you, but I'm listening to everybody's stories. James, I want you to get in there and just, because what it also reminds me of, as you get in there, it also reminds me of how now they're trying to cancel Phylicia Rashad. Yeah. When they come for black folks, they come for keeps.
Yeah, they do. My situation is different, political wise, no, but personally, yes. Once I was married, my husband and I were might as well say a power couple. We were Beyonce and Jay-Z of the gay world. Okay. So once we separated, it's like the world came down to me. It's like the narrative was shared from one side, my side didn't matter. So the people that I thought were my friends or who I thought had my back and would have stayed with me to the end, they didn't. So it was a long, hard battle. It's something that I had to pull myself out of myself and depend on just me. Now you had those friends that stuck around, but before that, it was just me. It was one side of the story. Everybody else cut me off. Didn't know what was going on. It was just in the dark. So I had to pull myself out of it. So like I said, it sucks, but it makes you a better, stronger person. And then it gives you something to fight for.
Why is it that when we as people, and James, what I'm hearing and what you're saying is like you brought it to a level of analysis that we see this phenomenon in our personal lives as well as our professional lives. Yeah. Like this happens to us professionally as well as personally. Why is it that when they come for us, like people don't like to show the same mercy that they're going to need on their side of the journey? Oh, right? Absolutely not. They don't. And then they use a certain level of cruelty in this political world that there's an assumption of power. There's an assumption that we can't do nothing back to them, but they can do whatever they want to us. Because when we're speaking of Nina Turner, this is the Democratic establishment saying, well, we can get rid of you and you can't do nothing to us. And when you look at this Phylicia Rashad, we have a clip from Phylicia Rashad. And I don't want to play the clip because I really want us to have that conversation. And we have a statement from Howard University. They're really trying to cancel Phylicia Rashad. And not today, Satan. Nah, run the clip of Phylicia Rashad. I don't know what she says in this clip is good or bad, but y'all not going to cancel it. Let's play it.
More than a dozen women of sexual assault and impropriety.
What has happened is declaration in the media of guilt without proof.
Earlier this week, her remarks about the women who have come forward created a firestorm.
You were quoted online as saying, forget those women. And that was a misquote. And that is not what I said. What I said is this is not about the women. This is about something else. This is about the obliteration of legacy.
Because some people might think that it was dismissive. that it
I
came
am a
across.
woman. I am a woman. I would never say such a thing.
But she's under attack today as 3 more women step forward with new accusations against Cosby.
When you first heard, women were saying they had been drugged or raped. I had never heard that before. And I can't even speak to those things and don't want to.
Rashawn insisting this scandal is an orchestrated attack. Who would have a vested interest in attacking the legacy of Bill Cosby?
That's my question, too.
A lot of that clip, that clip was an emotional roller coaster for me. Because, you know, and it was early on in the investigation as more women started to come out. I hear what she's saying in terms of legacy, but Cliff should have thought about his legacy too. I mean, let's just keep it. I mean, I'm just gonna keep it what Cliff should have thought about his Bill Cosby should have thought about his legacy too, as he was doing the things that he did. She didn't get it right. I think the first tweet, do we have the first tweet that she sent out yesterday? Because this is what they want to cancel her over. If we have that tweet, I want to bring it up because she was saying, finally, a terrible wrong has been righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected. And she had a subsequent tweet that went out after that. And this is what she said. I fully support survivors of sexual assault coming forward. My post was in no way intended to be insensitive to their truth. Personally, I know from friends and family that such abuse has lifelong residual effects. My heartfelt wish is for healing. I want to ask everybody on the screen this question. I'm going to make an excuse for Claire Huxtable, and you guys could tell me if that floats or not. I think she's here litigating publicly something that she has very nuanced, vested interest in knowing every detail about. She understood the fact that he had a plea deal and that she had all that nuance, and she went out there and sent that first tweet, and then she realized, oh boy, yeah, I kicked over the hornet's nest. And then she had to send out that correction tweet. That's my measure of what has happened. Am I missing something, or do you see it another way? Anyone who wants to jump in first?
All right, I'll jump in. I am displeased. And I don't know, and I want to be respectful of all the folks who have are survivors of sexual predation. I don't know if she's suffering from survivor's guilt, maybe not having been a victim herself. Let me give you an example. I work with sexual predators. I work with them. I know who some of them are. I know some of the folks who've retired have been pushed out. I know them, and it sickens me. And I've been one of the few Democrats who've asked for fellow Democrats to leave office. And it did not make me many friends, but I don't like sexual predators. Is that a controversial statement? I don't think so. But I could say those sexual predators who I work with or used to work with, well, they were okay to me. They didn't say anything misogynistic or rapey or anything like that. So they're okay. I can't do that. I can't do that in good faith. And this is so much bigger than one's individual working relationship with someone or their personal connection. This is systemic, and he is symbolic of something that's much bigger than him. He did not invent sexual predation. I am a living embodiment of sexual predation, because the reason why I do is because of institutional rape. I don't have any consensual relationships between black and white in my family after the Civil War. Right. So even though I'm a cisgender hetero man, I process this from a legacy perspective, from an entirely different way. And we have to, if what the miscarriage of justice could have been is the incompetence shown by the original DA, which is why this got to the state Supreme Court, right? In my state, it was gross incompetence. They messed up. But none of this has anything to do about whether or not he did it, because he admitted it, which is part of the crux of this is because he thought he could be honest and say he did it and still get off because he's a wealthy man who embraces capitalism. And he has been protected by this his whole professional life. And that is deeply, deeply problematic. And I think that is the bigger issue that we need to discuss, not specifically around Phylicia Rashad. And it's also interesting and a little ironic. We have historically Black colleges and universities, and I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for my ancestors who graduated and who contributed to these institutions. But a lot of them are run by very conservative folks with problematic priorities. Problematic priorities, problematic connections to the very corporations that we talk about and are part of the political industrial complex that push against folks like Nina Turner. It's ironic that they're pushing Phylicia Rashad when I thought they would actually go the other way, because generally speaking, they tend to err on the side of conservatism that promotes kind of heteronormativity, patriarchy, and other things, but cuts out certain areas where we can all agree. And we have to look at ourselves in terms of how do we hold our Black institutions to account and make sure that lovingly and meaningfully we make them better. And I think this is an opportunity to have that discussion.
Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've raised some very valid points, and even going very, very deep and talking about the history of non-consensual sex in this country and how that has plagued the Black community since the inception of this country. And so, when you really look at sexual predators and the culture of that and how it's been cultivated in America, and not just, like you could even go into music, entertainment. And when you look at Cosby having so much success in Hollywood, he was not the only person who was using his star power, so to say, to leverage sexual situations with women. And he took that even a step further. We were just looking at a clip there of when he was on with Larry King, and they were joking about it. It makes me think of there was a song Rick Ross made where he was joking about rape. And so it is a very nasty part of our culture in America that disregards in some degree, women having consent over their bodies. So it is a much larger issue. And I think that, almost to a fault, you have Rashad being, kind of this ride or die colleague for Cosby. And unfortunately, she may pay a price for what she said, for standing by him. And I could also see why it would be difficult for her to acknowledge the truth in all of these women coming forward if she never had that experience. It could be very hard for her to accept that if she never had those experiences with him. In addition to that, understand that Cosby's legacy is very much so her legacy.
Yeah.
And I cannot help but continue to think of how we got here, how we got to this place of this deep skepticism of whether or not he did or didn't do what he's accused of doing. And I think largely we have to remember the timing of when these accusations came out. And we heard her say this too in the interview, where she said, why would people be, it feels orchestrated. Why would people be doing this? That level of skepticism is there because historically, when you do have Black men who are walking out a large, iconic legacy, they're attacked. We've seen this happen time and time and time again. And these attacks came out at a time when he was in negotiation to buy a network. And so it did feel orchestrated, and not to diminish, because like we said, the evidence is there. He's admitted to it. 60 women coming forward. And, if any of them are listening, I want to say that I'm sorry for your experience. You did not deserve that.
Right.
And so how can we move to a place of being preventative right? Because we could sit here and defend Rashad and say she deserves to be in the position, or cancel her and she should be removed. But the larger question is not just one person's career and what the fate of it is in regards to this situation. The larger question I think that needs to come out of this is, how do we change our culture, and how do we prevent another man leveraging his star power and using that in a way, and even thinking of what was he a director, the big movie director?
Epstein.
I mean,
Not Epstein,
Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, Harvey.
Yeah.
So we've seen this. This is not a new situation. How do we normalize calling out abuse when we see it, and how do we move to a place of putting some preventative measures in place so that more in the future we don't have more victims?
Brother Mack.
You know, I think Representative Rabb said it accurately. Her comments, she got that wrong. She absolutely got it wrong. And to Sister Ford, to answer the question of how do we stop this, you hold people accountable. You just absolutely hold them accountable. And again, the insensitivity that I'm feeling right now, because all I'm trying to imagine is that one of those women were personal to me. My sister, my daughter, my mother, they were personal to me. Now, they don't have to be personal for me to be empathetic for what they went through. They don't have to be. And to that point, it is a zero-sum game. You know, if we're not going to tolerate it, you don't tolerate it. And the way that you do that, celebrity, your legacy, all of those things, whatever it is you've done in the past, because this is what I've always understood. You can take the largest edifice in the country, any great building that it took them years and years to build. But when they put those charges on there with just a simple push of a button, it all comes crumbling down. And when you talk about him putting himself in this position, again, I remember looking at the footage of Hugh Hefner. And I'm wondering, how is America's dad hanging out at the Playboy's mansion? How is that happening? You know? And again, when the question was asked, when you showed the B-roll footage, and he clearly says, no, I'm not going to answer that question. So you don't want to answer a question of where your penis has been, but you can make a statement about the condition of every single black mom in America, which you don't know. You know where you've been, you know. So, you know, it's, you know, there's no doubt, as the representative said, she got that wrong. She got that wrong. And how do we stop this? I don't care who you are. You hold them accountable. Trump never should have been president. Never should have been president based on what he did. Clinton should have been impeached and thrown out of office. You know, Cosby needs to be held accountable. Weinstein out. You know, and all the other folks that did it, R. Kelly, if you was messing around with underage girls, you need to be where you are. You know, let's just call it the way it is.
Yes, sir.
Like it or not.
James.
You know, and I agree. There needs to be accountability, but let's also bring this accountability on the justice system for allowing this to happen. Because if they would have did their job the first time, this technicality would have never happened, and we wouldn't be here at this point right now. It makes absolutely no sense, you know. And like I said, not sticking up for anything that Bill Cosby did, Harvey Weinstein, any of them. It's just this damn technicality. That's what it is. Look at the bigger picture. Is the justice system messed this up? Because it makes no sense that this man was allowed to have a deal and you had 60 women that came out. Simple as that. Now, granted.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was about to say, granted, Felicia Rashad's comments, I think her initial interview when she made that, she didn't have all the information. She really didn't. So her initial statement now of that miscarriage of justice, okay, I see that part. And I see what she's saying on that. And honestly, I don't think she was trying to take away from the victims, but saying that the miscarriage of justice, he made a deal, honor it. And now here it is. Like I said, should have never been able to make a deal in the first place for this to even happen.
That's
because honestly, he needs to be put under the jail. Okay.
Let me say this. Let me say this about the technicality. from a black perspective of us in the black community. You know, if it's one quote that we love by Brother Malcolm, by any means necessary. Well, the means that first prosecutor did, he got the truth out. Now, the fact that in that deposition, he asked a pointed question, did you purchase Quaaludes for the purpose of having sex with women? And he said yes. And supposedly those records were supposed to be sealed as part of the agreement. Well, one could have easily said all he had to do was go back to the 1991 clip of Cosby saying the exact same thing on Larry King, and he didn't have to make the deal. But in the spirit of by any means necessary, whatever the means was that happened, the truth came out. And that truth, if we could use by any means necessary for the good of us, then we ought to be able to use by any means necessary for the good of these sisters who were wrong, like it or not.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Represent. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, James. Go ahead.
Oh no, that was it.
I do want to point, and then Representative Rabb, I want to come to you because I want to play a clip of the attorney, the prosecutor at the time, Bruce Castor. Bruce Castor is the impeachment attorney, the second impeachment, the attorney for the second impeachment of Donald Trump. Now we're going to play a clip of him rambling at the impeachment trial of Donald Trump. And if anyone's questioning how such an egregious deal could be made, and how it could be fumbled at this point, and the miscarriage of justice for the women, right? If there's any miscarriage of justice, it's for the women. Bruce Castor is why, and listen to him as he defends the president of the United States at his second impeachment hearing trial. Let's take a look.
My name is Bruce Castor. I am the lead prosecutor, lead counsel for the 45th President of the United States. But I do understand the difference, Mr. Reskin. Manslaughter and murder. You could grow up to be a United States Senator. Congress shall make no law abridging all of these things, that they be convicted first. Nebraska, you're going to hear, is quite a judicial thinking place. Nixon to Ford, Ford to Carter, Carter to Reagan, Bush 41 to Clinton. That happens. I worked in this building 40 years ago. I got lost then, and I still do.
I don't mean, it's not a laughing matter, but this is, if you want to, incompetence abounds in this system. And at the top of the show, I asked a question. And I would like Representative Rabb, if you could help us tie this together, because I thank you for staying this long with us. And I know you've got a lot of stuff to do. But I think as Black people, I think one of the number one things that we have to be cognizant of, and you could take this guy down, Castor down. We can't let, if we know this system was built to oppress us, how do we think we can get away operating in this system the way the system, first of all, if you want to bring it into Bill Cosby, why the hell would Bill Cosby have this expectation, and you've already answered it, that he could get away with this? And that's because he's operating just like this capitalist system says that you can operate as a man in this system. And he forgot that he was a Black man. And then he also forgot that he was a human being. But Representative Rabb, your thoughts on him not changing the system, but just going right along with the way it was with every other producer.
You know, what you just spotlighted is highly controversial, because you are spotlighting and amplifying, not in a good way, but you are showing your audience aggressive white mediocrity at play, which is the norm, which is how white society has called excellence. And it's a paper tiger. The fact that Bruce Castor could be on that platform in light of his aggressive mediocrity would not exist if he were not a white man. That is the standard. And there is a default. And my grandfather used to say this about self-hating Negroes, which was, the white man's ice is colder. He did not care for self-hating Negroes. And he would tell me stories all the time. And that is the default in terms of the expectations of the rigor of white folk, white men in particular. And when we say we have to work, we've all heard this growing up. If you got a black mama who said you got to work twice as hard just to keep up,
yeah,
that's an understatement. But that is not to keep up with excellence. That's to keep up with white folk. Right? And that's not the same thing, because listen, no one understands what a meritocracy or a competitiveness is if white folk have, even to the present, have not allowed for a level playing field. It was only recently where they let women into most of these institutions, fairly recently, right? It's only recent that we have folks of different backgrounds who are at the table, and not necessarily, at the head of the table, but just showing up. So we don't actually know what a meritocracy looks like, because it has been consciously and consistently narrowed to a very small group of folks. And in Pennsylvania, slavery was the state law until 1780, and 75 years later, the last black person was emancipated. This is the norm. And going back to Cosby, push a little bit on this kind of reductionist perspective of how the white man tries to bring black folk down when we're at our zenith. Cosby had been at his apex for some time. He wasn't new to wealth. The reason, there's a difference between causation and correlation. There's a strong correlation between him wanting to buy up a network and beating out other white men who wanted it, as much, and that causing his downfall. The correlation is that as long as he's making a lot of money for white folk, he's good. Sell the posts, right? You're good. Talk about poor black folk and single moms. Good. We're all good, right? But it's not that all white folk conspired against him. If there were all kinds of men and women, black and white, who knew his misdeeds for decades, and the misdeeds of all of his running buddies for decades. It only takes one disgruntled person who wanted that NBC deal and said, I don't want that so-and-so to get it, who leaked something that he should have leaked long before, but they were indicted in it because those folks were going to the same parties. So this is not about him being black. This is not about him speaking truth to power, because he didn't do a whole lot of that. This is about patriarchy fueled capitalism that says, we will reward you as long as you feed the beast. And if we don't indict the beast, if we don't fight back, we are complicit. And it's not easy. I'm not saying we can live off the grid and have some kind of socialist utopia. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, we just like the folks who don't want us to talk about critical race theory, there's a lot of us who don't want to talk about how we don't do enough critical analysis of the institutions that we may temporarily benefit from, because it helps our kind of creature comfort in the moment, but degrade the quality of life for black folk collectively. That's a conversation that's going to be a hard one. It's going to listen. I grew up in a black liberal bourgeois family in Chicago in the 70s and 80s. My hands are not clean. I can't say there's no pure test here. We all have our issues, but we have to have these difficult conversations within our own communities. It's so easy to say this is wrong with all of y'all, but to have the real courage of our conviction to say this is what we need to heal from. We have to acknowledge our own wounds and understand their origins so that we can be stronger. Because I tell my sons, who are teenagers now, I said, look, the reason I am vulnerable and do so publicly is not because I'm an extrovert, I want people to know all my business, is because I need to set an example to let folks know that I am imperfect, that I have wounds and I seek to heal. And that's why I go to therapy. That's why I speak out and want to be stronger. And you can't be stronger if you don't heal, and you can't heal if you don't understand what wounds have been inflicted upon you and what wounds we inflict upon ourselves. And this is the conversation. It is so much bigger than Cosby. It is so much bigger than the judicial system and the carceral state, because my reaction is, I want to see him in an alley with none of his people around. And that's a very hetero male response. I get it. It's problematic. And I struggle with that, because I want to beat him down. That's not the solution. It also centers me over what's best for the women who were victimized.
Right.
It should be them who are centered. But more importantly, what real justice looks like is when this man acknowledges, when he takes account of his actions publicly, and then gives all of his wealth to all the things to eradicate what he put up. That's what it looked like. It's not about putting him under the jail, because Brother James, that's what I thought. That's my first impression because of how I've been trained, but that's not the morally appropriate and constructive thing. We don't need to build more prisons and put the bad guys in them. We need to transform and use people like him as an example, and he may not ever get to that point. So I'm not an idealist in that sense.
Right.
That may never happen. But we need to show the world what justice looks like. And that justice is a restorative element that includes him saying, the reason I have been a predator is X, Y, and Z. Here is why I did it. Here's why I'm wrong. Here's how I was part of the problem. And here's what I'm going to do to be part of the solution. That's what I want to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. James or Professor Mack.
Rep. Rabb said it. This is, for me personally, this is one of the most difficult conversations that I've ever had publicly. I don't take it lightly. It needs to be had. And Brother Dixon, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of DJ. I'm proud of Rep. Rabb. I'm proud of Sister Fort, Councilwoman Samples. I'm proud of all of the folks that may be tuning in on this to listen to it and try to work our way through it. It's not that we're trying to, some people are going to want to simplify this. Here go brothers, here these bourgeois black folks beating down on somebody. No, it's not that. Right. If we want to make this better, then we got to hold our folks accountable as well. We have to understand that the hurt that was caused by these sisters, and we cannot marginalize them or forget them.
Right.
The topic of the conversation is going to be technicality. No, that ain't what burns in my soul right now. The topic of this is how these women have to have been feeling, because the one thing that my mama always taught me when it comes to sex, Carl, no means no. I don't care how you try to persuade a woman. Spanish fly, quaaludes. That sister wasn't fully cognizant when this so-called consensual sex, that did not happen by his own admission. And so that is what sits at the paramount of my feelings about this very difficult conversation to have.
James.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I can't say anything else after that. It is a very difficult conversation because it hits very, very close to home. Without going into detail with anything, that's all I can say. It hits very, very close to home. And just knowing that, on the flip side of it, to be honest, just seeing that he's able to walk free, it sucks. Because now this makes it seem like any other rapist out there can just get off on the technicality if they find one little thing wrong and be able to just walk the hell out of jail. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that at all.
And Brother Ben, let me just put this last point in, because somebody said they referenced his age in one of the conversations I had. And one of the things I said to him, if that be's your logic, then how could we say we're due reparations when slavery ended in 1865 and we're talking about it today? That logic just doesn't weigh. A crime against humanity, a crime against somebody has to be met with accountability. I don't care if it's your last day on earth.
Absolutely.
It needs to be met.
I love it. Representative Chris Rabb, Pennsylvania's 200th congressional district. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us today. Brother Carl Mack.
Y'all are awesome. All of y'all are awesome.
It is.
Man, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, man. So insightful.
Likewise.
I don't think there's much more to be said about Cosby. I think we have said it, and there's still so much more. Georgia referenced the conversations that we need to have in the Black community. not because those conversations don't need to be had in the white community, but because we have, as black people, we got to operate differently in America. And the different is we got to walk with integrity. We got to do what's right. We got to call a thing, even if they're your favorite artist. Even if you were a former Cosby scholar and you received, even if he was your America's dad, you got to call a thing. And the technicality, whatever the case may be with Bill Cosby, I think the greater conversation is, how do we as black people operate in this country?
Yeah.
How do we operate? Do we try to operate and mirror what is already here? Or do we go in and change? Is America changing us, or are we changing America? That's what Dr. King was talking about when he was talking about assimilating us into a burning house. Because if we're being assimilated into a burning house, the real question is, are we changing that fire, or is that fire burning us? Are we allowing what America is to corrupt us? Or are we going to speak truth to power, even when it's an inconvenient truth for us? That's all I got for today. DJ Exclusive. It's your world, man.
Yes, sir. Love y'all. Mean it. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Representative Rabb, we thank you, sir. Brother Carl Mack, it's always a pleasure.
Like it or not. We'll see y'all in the morning. All right, y'all.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, man. Deep combo today. Awesome show, man. We greatly appreciate y'all for everything, man. Y'all are just great. Great audience, great comments, everything in the chat. So greatly appreciate y'all. Make sure patreon.com/likeItOrNot, patreon.com/likeItOrNot. Patron party is going down tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you have your face in the place, y'all. And real quick, before I leave, want to get some of these comments read real fast. Boom. Jay and Lee, Felicia Rashad aside, what about Camille? Why aren't we talking about her standing by Cosby? Why wouldn't she be considered an enabler in a way? That's deep. And then Siscat, I wish more white people would get up and watch the show every morning. I'm on the West Coast. I set an alarm at 5:30 a.m. just to be here. It's so important. Shout out to you, Siscat. We appreciate y'all. And let's see, I had a couple of super chats to get off real quick before I get out of here. Ralph 1984, thank you for your super chat. Facts 100. And my brother Infinite Content said, oh, Ralph 1984 again, under the jail, but so true. If you do crime, you need to do time. Infinite Content, of course I can't get back to your super chat because it won't let me. Anyway, I got you next time, sir. Y'all enjoy yourselves. We will see y'all tomorrow. Love y'all. Mean it. Great show again. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Facebook, y'all. Like It or Not show. Deuces. See y'all tomorrow. Patron party. It's going down. See y'all.
Well, let this go. Touch your one second numb.